Welcome to the Dram Amateur Podcast. Well, hey, everybody. My name is Jason. Welcome to episode 7 of the Dram Amateur Podcast. Thank you guys all for joining. If you don't follow me on Instagram yet, that would be great if you could. You could find me under at Dram_amateur. Short name on Instagram is Dramature. I'm even on the Boomer social media pages as well under the Dram Amateur Podcast. So come find me on Facebook also. But as I had mentioned in my last episode, I had a change of pace in these podcasts because I want to do something new. So today I have a guest. I'm going to try start to do guests in our podcasts. So my guest today is my good friend, Jim. Jim, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody.
So I invited Jim on today because I thought it would be really interesting to start to evolve the podcast over time. I'm currently staring at myself on a screen, which is really weird, and staring at Jim on a screen, which is really weird. I should probably just have Jim on the screen because I'm looking at myself and it's just kind of odd. But no, I really wanted to try different things. And you know, the evolution of my podcast, I think, is kind of where I'm trying to go with this, is just invite different people that have had different experiences with bourbon or tequila or rum or any other spirit, but have them tell their stories and have them be involved in the podcast. I thought was pretty fun. So I kindly asked Jim the other day to say, hey, would you be my first guest? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So pretty excited to have him on and a part of that. But Jim is from St. Louis, right? And he's actually currently drinking on some kind of disgusting drink that his wife made. Like, she's trying to poison him. Is Lindsay trying to poison you right now?
No. She's bringing me a cup of coffee, and it just I don't know, something's going on with my taster, I feel like.
So Jim is the co-host of Children of the 80s podcast. I think you guys have heard me talk about that a few times. But excited to have Jim on. Jim's from St. Louis, right, Jim?
That is correct, originally.
All right. Originally from St. Louis, lives in the Atlanta area now. And we've known each other for, God, how many years, Jim?
Our friendship is old enough to go have a drink that you're going to discuss on your podcast. 21 years, man.
Yeah, it's been a very long time. So I met Jim where we used to work back in the day. And then did you work at the first place, the truck company too? Yeah. So I met there. That's, and then Jim and I hopped. Yeah, Jim and I hopped to another company together as well. Separate timings, but we did hop to another company together. So, and so I've known Jim for years. We've grown up kind of together in our later stages in life. And unfortunately don't see each other that much anymore because we've gone our separate ways as far as working together, and we live in separate parts of the state, probably like an hour and 15 apart.
Yeah. At least an hour on a good day, but probably closer to an hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't see each other as much as we used to because we all have families and lives now, but it's good. It's good to have him on, and he's a good sport for doing this with me. I greatly appreciate it. And their podcast was the inspiration for me to kind of start to do my own podcast. So again, they are Children of the 80s. I think you guys can find them on all major podcast platforms. Is that right? You guys aren't keeping yourselves out of any special ones, are you?
No, we're not. We're Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Good Pods, all that stuff.
So. All the good ones. And what's your podcast about? I mean, it kind of says it in the title, but what's your podcast about, Jim?
Yeah, it's really about growing up in the 1980s. We do a lot of pop culture stuff, but we've also done episodes on what it was like to go to school, what our gym class was like, or what they put us through in school. Movies, music. Music seems to be the most popular one, but we do TV too. So just stuff that we remember from the 80s from each of our perspectives, because we grew up, complete opposites. She grew up in the country. I grew up in the city. She grew up with no siblings. I grew up with 5 siblings. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's cool. No, it's good stuff, and they make me laugh quite often. There's some really good stories that Lindsay tells that I've never heard before, which is really good. Their latest episode about the country stuff, right? The country in the '80s, is that what it
Yeah,
was? Like top country songs. You guys ranked your top 10.
the crossover, the country hits that were crossed over to the pop charts. It apparently was real big in the early '80s,
Yep,
and so we discussed that. That was a lot of fun to do.
yep. And
And
who
that's
was
the
the
one that we've got the most positive reception on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And who was the person that I did not know was deaf or blind? Blind.
Not deaf, blind. Ronnie Millsap.
Ronnie
Yeah, I get a text. I get a text from you, and it's a voice text, and it just yells, "Ronnie Millsap was blind. Are you kidding me?"
I had zero idea Ronnie Millsap was blind. Like zero. I'm 46 years old. I had zero idea Ronnie Millsap was blind.
That's so funny.
So, hey, all right. So, Bottle Pop said, I have a guest today, so I can actually drink on this. So, today, Jim, I brought out a banger. I had to bring out the rum. I know you're going to talk about kind of bourbon because you've kind of got into bourbon a little bit. And I brought out a Holmes K Guyana from 2003. So Holmes K is an independent bottler. So with rums, what will happen is independent bottlers will buy barrels from different distilleries, and then they will bring them to either the US or to Europe, and they call that continental aging. So you'll either have tropical aging where they were actually produced and sat in the barrels, and tropical aging is like, it's like aging on steroids. So if you have a 5-year-old rum, for example, it's like a 10 to 15-year-old rum aging wise, because the heat and humidity is always there to kind of push the rum into the barrel and then back and expand it and so on and so forth. But if you do tropical or continental aging, the temperatures are a little cooler, so the aging is kind of slowed down a little bit. So this one's really good. This one was aged 18 years in ex-bourbon casks. I have no idea how long it was aged. Oh, wait, I do. Aged for 2 years in the tropics and 16 years in the UK. Bottle Pop.
Nice.
Sounding like shit.
No, that's a good sound. So that's actually from Guyana, or at least that's where it originated from?
Yep.
That's cool.
Yep. So it's good stuff. It's probably one of my favorite pours. And I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this today, I'm going to go ahead. And it's one I slow roll too. So I'm like, if I'm going to do this today, I'm going to go get a good bottle and I'm going to enjoy this and chat with Jim. So,
I'm surprised they didn't name it the Jim Jones rum. It's from Guyana.
Oh, man. All right. So Jim, what we normally do in this podcast, which is we just talk about random shit to start. The other thing too, I'm going to cuss in this podcast. You guys don't cuss at all in your podcast. You guys are very family friendly, aren't you?
Yeah, we do try to keep it family friendly. Our daughter listens to it for one, so that's one reason why we do it. But then, we just we think it's neat, especially for people that grew up in the '80s, if they can listen to it with their family, with their children. And so we definitely try to avoid doing that and maybe make it a family affair, because to us, that's kind of what the '80s was about, at least for television and radio and stuff like that, not necessarily the movies. I got away with watching a bunch of stuff I shouldn't have got away with in the '80s on movies. But as far as television and everything, it's pretty family friendly. So that's how we try to keep it.
I've been trying to keep it that way too for myself. But as I talk to you, I'm like, if it's just me, I tend to control it more. But as I talk to other people, I think my true personality comes out. And I think it's part of, like Jim knows, I think it's part of who I am, is sometimes just drop an S-bomb or something every now and then. I listen. Oh, the other thing too, weird thing. Do you guys go back and listen to your own podcasts?
Yeah, we do.
Release them?
We do. So we record them, and then Lindsay spends, about a half day. It just depends. A couple hours to a half day editing it, and so she listens to it while she's, editing it, and then she'll post it. And then as she posts it, usually that day I'll listen to it on the way to work. So if something bad happens, like the music's too loud or something, just doesn't sound right, then I can let her know right away and hopefully fix anything that's broken before too many people listen to it.
Yeah, I find myself, I finished out your minisode yesterday as I was driving, and then I have it on my Spotify. I follow you guys, and then my podcast starts right after yours. So every single time you release one, right, it stops, and then it's like, welcome to the Dram, and I'm like, oh geez, and I just sit there and listen, and I'm like, I know what I talked about or anything. Like, it's just the weird. I'm like, am I weird for listening to my own crap?
So it's so funny that you say that, because I have subscribed to like 5 or 6 podcasts, and when I finish mine, it goes right into yours too. It doesn't go into one of the other ones that I listen to. It automatically goes right into yours, which is so funny. Unless I'm at the end of yours. If I've listened to all of yours, then it'll go to something else. But if I'm behind on yours, um, then it will jump right into yours too. So that's kind of funny that ours jumps into yours on both your device and mine.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. It is. So, all right. So let's go into some random topics to start. So, Jim, I don't know if you know this, but in the bourbon world, people spend a ton of money on bourbon and chase things like crazy. So the hunt and the chase is there. So two of the bigger bottles that are released on a yearly basis by two of the bigger distilleries, they had lotteries for over the last couple weeks. So Old Forester, do you know who Old Forester is?
I have heard of Old Forester.
Okay. So Old Forester released their birthday bourbon this past week. They did a raffle on it, and they announced the winners yesterday.
Were you one of the winners?
No.
Oh.
It's really fun when I pull up my Instagram and I see everybody going, yeah, I lost. Same thing as last year. Same thing as last year, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I don't know how many entries they received. I'm probably going to tell you it's probably over 25,000, to be honest with you. But they did the lottery. You were supposed, if you won, you had to go up to Kentucky and pick up the bottle and so on and so forth. So we did not win that one. But a little good story about Old Forester birthday bourbon back in the COVID year. We actually won a bottle. Liz actually won a bottle from Tower Wine and Spirits when they did their online raffle for the holidays. So we got to go buy a bottle of birthday bourbon, I think in like 2020 or 2021. And my phone's going off like crazy. And we got to go pick it up. It was we bought it for retail, which was really great as well. And then we got it home and we opened it, and it was terrible.
Really?
Terrible. It was $189, and it was terrible.
Did you have to go up to Kentucky to pick it up?
No, we got it here at Tower. So Tower did a Christmas drop.
Okay.
It was so bad. It was so bad. So fun part is I ended up selling the other. I drank half the bottle, and then I sold the other half a bottle for $500.
Whoa. It was terrible, but you still drink half the bottle?
I kept going back to it to see if I liked it. That was the thing. Like,
you were hoping that you had missed on the first try.
Yep, that's what I was hoping. And do you know too? I don't know how much. I don't know how many bottles you have. We'll get into all these kind of stories from you. But did you ever notice that after you take the lid off the bottle for the first time, that your first pour is very different than say their 12th pour out of that bottle with air in the bottle? Have you ever noticed that difference in the bourbon?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
It's always best when you first open it.
So, yeah, I think it's always best when you leave air in it.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, definitely.
Oh, see, I've had the opposite effect. It's almost like a relationship. It's great at first, and then it starts, souring a little bit.
But I think that's the beauty of bourbon and different people's palates is that, you can like something very different than I like, and it doesn't mean that you have no taste in what you're drinking and I have taste in what I'm drinking or whatever. It's just our palates are different. We just experience things in different ways. So it's kind of the beauty of like the spirit world. The spirit world. No, I would say the liquor world. The spirit world seems very Halloweenish.
Yeah, I was thinking that old Police song, material and spirits in the material world.
Oh, man. All right. So the other lottery that was released last week, which I looked before this episode, and I don't think they released the winners yet, but Four Roses. And I think see, Jim's eyes perk up. So you hearing the podcast are not going to see the video, but Jim's eyes just perked up. Jim's a Four Roses guy. He likes Four Roses. We'll get into that here in a little bit, but they have a limited edition release every single year. that they do a blend of different bourbons. This year, I think the blend is a 26-year-old bourbon, a 16-year-old bourbon, a 14-year-old bourbon, and a 12-year-old bourbon. And Four Roses has all different kind of recipes. So different recipes that they have, they'll put in there and blend. But it's their 135th anniversary. I put in for that lottery. I don't think they release the names until the 5th or the 8th. I think something like that. So I still have a chance to win a bottle of that. So if I do, I'll be taking a trip up to Kentucky in October, but fingers crossed I win that one.
If you do, I'll be taking an hour and a half trip up to where you live to partake in a little bit.
So yeah, I have a couple. I have a 2020, the limited release ones or the limited edition ones. I have a 2020 and a 2022. So they have your name on them. So just come sample whenever you want. So. All right. So another topic. Do you know this is the last Sunday without football for the rest of the year?
That I hadn't thought about it. I did know that, but I hadn't thought about it in those terms.
Last Sunday.
It's a glorious time of the year.
I know. I'm pretty excited, man. Like I you know how much college football I watched yesterday?
None.
0, man. 0.
I was going to say, you had, if you had watched like 11 hours of it, I'm going to be like, oh, you're like jonesing for your fix, right? You're jonesing for your football fix, because I know you're not a college football guy.
I don't mind watching it. I just was so busy yesterday running around, and I know LSU's playing tonight versus Florida State, but is that at 8 tonight, or is that like a
7:30 or 8? Okay, yeah, cool. 7:30 or 8 tonight. Mm-hmm.
I'll watch that tonight because I have nothing else on TV. But I've been falling asleep at like 8 or 9 o'clock the last 2 nights. Like this morning, I was wide awake at 5 a.m. and I'm like, I have nothing to do today. Can I just sleep in for once? But yeah, so last Sunday of football, NFL Sunday ticket is purchased at my house. I am ready for my Niners. I am totally gung-ho. I'm going to watch every freaking game. I already told Liz I'm going to be a slug on Sundays, at least game time. I can do anything before or after. I'll cook even during the games because I'll cook, but I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything else. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped too. You know, I always enjoy, football starting and then football season, and then right around the end of February, I start getting a little bit bummed out because there's no NFL football on Sundays, Mondays, or Thursdays, or Saturdays, or Tuesday mornings. Whenever they put them on, it seems like they're trying to dominate every day of the week now.
I'm excited for it. So that'll be fun. And you play fantasy football along with me, right? Not together anymore, but we both play fantasy football.
That's actually how we met, if you remember correctly.
That is
right before I started work at the old place that you were talking about. Through a mutual friend of ours, he brought me into your fantasy football league, and so we met. And then like a week later, 2 weeks later, I started.
Wasn't the first place we met was Taco Mac on Holcomb Bridge?
Technically, yeah. Technically, yeah. We met, yeah. But there was a bunch of people there, so didn't really get to talk to you or anything. So. Yep.
And so Jim and I have co-owned a fantasy football team. I dropped out because I don't remember what the hell I dropped out of the baseball league that we ran. I had my own team, but Jim and I ran a fantasy football team too together, and I dropped out of that too. I think it was when I was moving and just needed the money and just making sure I got the house squared away and all those kind of things. Looking back at it now, hindsight, I wish I had stayed, but whatever, it is what it is.
You have those two reversed. We co-owned the fantasy baseball team, the fantasy football team. We each have.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
Yeah. So then you dropped out of the baseball, and then I think I dropped out either that year or the next year. So, but yeah, I think it's just because you move so far away from everybody.
I think that's
the reason
what it was,
why, and they quit having online, stuff. Everything's always in person with those guys. So it just became a little difficult.
Yep, it is. And when you got 3 kids my age, it is kind of difficult sometimes. Like part of my day yesterday was running around picking up kids and driving them everywhere and going and doing all that since Liz wasn't home. So it was a busy day, but it was fun. So last episode, did you listen to episode 6, Jim?
I did.
Okay, so I was talking about who my keeper league I thought about keeping as a keeper, and I decided that I need to stop being a damn homer and not keep Brock Purdy in the 13th round because I could probably get him in the 17th, which I did, my last pick. I mean, it made him Mr. Irrelevant in my own league. I ended up keeping Kenneth Walker III in the 10th round. So I was pretty happy with that. I'm not a big Kenneth Walker III fan. I'm not looking forward to what he's going to do this year because I think he's going to have a pretty rough season. But value-wise, 10th round for Kenneth Walker, I was pretty happy about.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Right. I think he's going to be split in time, but he's the main guy. And so to get a main guy in the 10th round, that's almost impossible to do. So you probably chose wisely.
That's what I thought too. So, and my team name, so I do have Brock in both leagues, and I'm not normally a homer when it comes to fantasy football. But I did get him in like last pick in both leagues. I went against my strategy and went kicker, defense, or defense kicker, and then Brock in every single league. So my one team name is Brock You Like a Hurricane, and then my other team name is Party Like a Brock Star. So I had to be a little clever. I don't know. It'll be fun. And my other quarterback in that league with Brock is Daniel Jones, which is not, I'm not in love with that in any way, shape, and form, but it is what it is. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I'll take it.
He gets a rough go.
Well, he plays Dallas week 1, so I mean he should play fine because Dak's going to throw 90 fucking interceptions and Daniel Jones going to have a great game. So, all right, so that's all the fun topics I had for the day. Jim, we're going to talk about your bourbon journey. So it was funny. Oh God, I don't know how many months ago. I'm gonna say 6, 8, 9 months ago. So Jim, myself, and our buddy Bob have a group text that we always stay in touch with each other. We don't see each other as much as I wish we did, but we always do stay in touch. And Jim, out of the blue, I don't even know why or how, but Jim's like, I'm drinking X bourbon. I don't remember what the frick it was, but I was like, what the hell? Since when did you start drinking bourbon? Since when the hell did you start appreciating it? So what made you go buy that what made you go buy that very first bottle is probably a loaded question.
Is my family going to listen to this podcast?
Stress is a fine answer. We can keep it high level. We don't have to worry about anything else.
Yeah, COVID. I mean, the stress of just being stuck in the house and not being able to go anywhere, not being able to go on vacation, not being able to go to work, all that stuff. And I'm just like, I need some kind of outlet.
Yep.
So let's try this.
Yep. So that agreed very much so. So what was the first bottle you bought? Do you remember? I told you I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I actually think I started with like Canadian. I want to say Seagram's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I know. Yeah, no, I didn't know what I was doing, so I went with that, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I went with an Irish whiskey. I'm trying to think what it was now. I can't. I can recall everything from the 80s, but stuff in the last like 3 years, I can't recall anything. But eventually I made my way to, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to try a bunch of different things. So eventually I made my way to Evan Williams Black.
Okay. Not terrible, not great either, but I know it's fun knowing that you made your way to that point because you've totally changed even like where you've gone since then from what you've told me that you've had. Did you regret going? I guess, was there do you remember a huge difference going from the Canadian to the Irish to the Evan Williams Black?
Yes. Yeah. So it's funny. The Evan Williams Black, made me angry. It made, if I drank too much of it, I started getting, like irritated and angry and barking at my family. And I'm like, oh, I can't keep doing this. And if anything, I mean, and I can say this as an Irish guy, you'd think the Irish whiskey would make me angry. But no, it was the Evan Williams Black. So I like the taste of it, but it just, for whatever reason, it didn't sit well with me. And so, I'm sure the family, they didn't realize it, but they were probably happy that I made the switch there.
So So Evan Williams, I don't think I have a bottle of Evan Williams. I think if you ever want to try Evan Williams again, there's a white label Evan Williams with like green lettering. It's supposed to be okay. I think when I first started drinking whiskey, I think I told you, I think on the podcast, I had started with Old Crow and Evan Williams, I think were my two that I started with. An Old Crow back in the day when I was drinking it was probably worse swill than it is even now. So I know what it's like to drink harsh stuff that makes you angry because it's so bad that you're like, why am I drinking this? Did you load it with a bunch of ice?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you were drinking it on ice and then, okay.
Try to taper down the anger with some ice.
Water down the liquid anger. It's supposed to be liquid courage, not liquid anger.
Yeah. It gave me courage to be angry.
All right. So let me ask a question. So after you bought that initial bottle of Evan Williams, did you go back to Evan Williams?
I think I did. I think I did it twice because I think it was, I probably didn't notice the anger until the second bottle.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. And then it was like, if I had a sip of it, here and there just to relax after work, it might be, okay, or I might get irritated. But if I had more than a few sips, I was like, man, I could never understand. I was always like I was always like a happy drunk. I couldn't understand why people got into fights. They must have all been drinking Evan Williams, man, because I was ready to go.
Oh man, I don't doubt it. I mean, it's probably extremely young. I think it was 80. I think it's 80 proof, the regular Evan Williams. I don't even think it's that strong. But did it burn the shit out of you too when you were drinking it?
I mean,
maybe not going to be ice.
Yeah, the ice tones it down, but yeah, for the most part, like almost all bourbon or whiskey, it
has that burn.
Yeah, it has that burn.
You get over that.
Sometimes it'll make you feel good in the winter.
Oh yeah, no. There's bottles I have that I've had in the summertime recently over the last month, and I'm like, no. This is a wintertime pour. Like this is not a summertime pour. So yeah, it's very, very, very much agreed with the spice and the heat and all those kind of things, the burn to keep you warm in the winter. So after the Evan Williams, what did you go to the liquor store and look for next? What'd you get?
I think I got Jim Beam.
Okay, white label Jim Beam?
Yes.
Okay, so you went from charcoal filtered to non-charcoal filtered products. So you went from something that's made, I think Evan Williams is made in Tennessee. Oh geez.
I think it is, yes.
I should know this. This is really not good. I'm pretty sure. No, Evan Williams is made in Kentucky. Shame on me. Shame. But anyway, all right. So you went to Evan Williams to Jim Beam. You went with the white label Jim Beam, I'm sure. What was your thoughts on the switch to Jim Beam? Did you think you stepped up, or did you think you stayed the same?
I didn't. I don't know. I think I probably stepped up a little bit, but it wasn't huge enough to me to really understand the difference. I don't really have a refined palate. I think, we've kind of discussed that a little bit. And, I reach out to you to find out, what the good whiskeys are, what the good bourbons are. So, I mean, there was definitely a difference in taste, but it wasn't enough for me to go, okay, I absolutely love this. I'm still looking for, something else.
That's fair. I can't tell you the number of bottles that I've bought that I have the same thing, you'll buy a bottle and you're like, you crack it open, you try it, and you immediately have buyer's remorse, and you're like, what the hell? What did I do this for? And I've had a couple bottles like that where I was really excited to get them. And then I get them home and I crack them. I'm like, oh, this is so bad. And then I let it sit for a while to see if it gets better with some air in the bottle and if it changes. And then you crack it again, you taste it again, and you're like, nope. So I can't tell you. I've probably given away 10 bottles or more of stuff I've bought that I just did not like. So even now, like, I don't buy things that much anymore that I know I don't like, or I'm too afraid to try new things because I don't want to waste the money on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There are so many that I want to try. But again, if I don't like them, I'm wasting money because I'm the only one here, that's drinking them. So I don't like to, I found something that I like, and I went off of it once and didn't like, you know, I didn't like the secondary choice as much as what I like now, and so I went back.
Yeah, that happens. That happens. So, especially when you get a collection like mine, where you're $300, 300 bottles plus, and you're like, I have no space for it anymore, and you know what you end up liking, so you're just afraid to buy anything and not like it. So, so after the Jim Beam, where'd you go after that? Do you remember?
I found the Four Roses.
Oh, so Jim loves his Four Roses, and I remember, I think that's one of the first times you had told me that you had tried it or you were drinking bourbon, because you were telling me that you enjoyed Four Roses a lot, and you thought it was really good. And I have to agree. I really enjoy Four Roses. I have two of those limited edition bottles that I was telling you about, the 2020 and the 2022. And I have some single barrel picks as well from a local restaurant down in Woodstock, that are absolutely fantastic, man. They are stellar freaking pours of bourbon. But so you like the Four Roses, and you like, what do you like about it? Just the smoothness of it, the flavor of it. What do you think you like the
Yeah,
most about
I think the smoothness and the flavor. So I discovered it by accident. So there's a little. I took Lindsay out for her birthday,
it?
uh,
Okay.
and we stayed in a little town, near us for the weekend, and we found a uh, Cajun restaurant, a New Orleans style restaurant in that downtown. And so we went that night for her birthday, and I was looking over the menu, and um, I'm like, they had, Four Roses was their brand. I mean, they had other brands, but it was like that was what they kind of championed. And so I said, you know what, bring me some of this. I've never tried it, and so they brought it, and I tasted it. I'm like, that's that's pretty all right. And so that's what kind of got me on that. So the next time, I'm not like you. I don't have 300 bottles. I don't have. I don't even have three bottles. Right? Like I'm on a budget, Jason. And So I go one bottle at a time. Um, and so the next time I went, after I ran out of the either the Beam or the Angry Evan Williams, I went and got Four Roses, um, and started on that. And
Would you remember
that's
which one
kind of
you got? Was
no,
it the
I
small
don't.
batch one?
Yes, it
Okay.
was. It was the
Yeah.
small batch one. Yes,
Okay. Cool.
and so that's what I started on, and then that's when I started reaching out to you, going, "What do you guys like?" Um, and I think you said Four Roses is good, but try the Wild Turkey. What was it? Wild Turkey 101.
Yeah, Wild Turkey 101. I mean,
Yeah.
either that or I mean, that's 101 proof. So if the proof's too high, you can even just do regular Wild Turkey, which I think is 80 proof. And then they have another one, the Matthew McConaughey one, the
Hmm.
Long Branch one that's made from Wild Turkey. That's actually pretty good too. A lot of people don't mind that for like a summertime pour or something lower proof. But yeah, I threw you over to the Wild Turkey fence because I thought it was pretty approachable, and knowing there is differences, right? Where you don't
Yeah.
probably know, but Four Roses is a little bit more floral than the Wild Turkey is. The Wild Turkey's got this like, and I'm not good at this either, but this like cinnamon oaky
Yes.
like flavor to it, right? It's not heavy cinnamon, but it's like baked like baking spices more. Where like the Four Roses, it's not heavily floral, but it is a little different flavor
Hmm.
palette wise. And did you tried the Wild Turkey, didn't you?
I did, and I liked it. There was nothing wrong with it, except for I agree with you on the spiciness, the cinnamon, you know, um, the cinnamony flavor, which was okay, but I didn't like it as much as the Four Roses. So
Right.
I did enjoy the Wild Turkey, um, but not as much as I like the Four Roses. So after that one bottle, I went back to the Four Roses, and
Now you're a
that,
Four Roses fan.
that may be my forever girl, the one I bring home to meet mom.
So have you tried? So there's a lot of Four Roses products. So I wouldn't go below where you're at now. So there's other bottles that are kind of the taller, skinnier bottles. They kind of
Hmm.
come up like a silhouette shaped. Yours
Hmm.
has kind of got like the thin, fat, chunky bottle.
Correct.
There's a Four Roses small batch select, which is pretty good. It's a solid bottle if you ever find one. And then they have these, I don't know, there's squatty bottles. It kind of looks like a chess piece. They're single barrels. I think they're around $40-$50. But if you ever want to kind of take another change in it and try something different, like a single barrel, definitely buy one of those. It's a good pour. It's not as cheap as the small batches because the small batch is a blend of ones, but this is a single barrel, so you'll get to try different things and different expressions.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. I think I bought one of the skinny bottles. I went up to St. Louis to visit family, and I was telling them about the Four Roses, and none of them had ever tried it. And so I bought one of the skinny bottles and poured some. And I was like, "What do you guys think?" And they were like, "Yeah, it's okay." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Four Roses is great." And then I tasted it, and I'm like, "Yeah, it is just kind of okay, isn't it?"
There's a big difference in a lot of the product out there because they'll just do different blends or whatever. And I think that bottle that you probably bought for them is the one that a lot of bars do for their oh my gosh, I can't think of the damn name of it right now. But they're whatever their bar pour is, like whatever they have as
Right.
their
They're
um
healthy.
yeah, house bourbon or whatever. Yeah, house bourbon, or there's another name for it. I can't think of it, but a lot of places will do that. So yeah, I mean, Four Roses is really solid. And if you ever get to go to Kentucky, I heard the tour at Four Roses is extremely, extremely nice. Like great tour to go check to see how that's all made. And I think they have 12 different recipes or 10 different recipes, if I'm not mistaken. I'm an amateur, so I'm not supposed to know off the top of my head, but I just saw something today that there's a box of them. So you get like little sample bottles of all the different recipes that they have. So you can try the different flavors and try the changes in flavors between all the recipes as well. So it's a pretty cool experience. I haven't seen one. I don't think they sell them in stores. I think they only sold them at the distillery. I've seen a couple people that have them, but that's pretty interesting that they do that and offer that to their customers.
See, it's funny to me that you say you're an amateur, right? Because you have like so much more knowledge than I do on this. Like I am, I want to 99.9% ignorant uh, on this stuff. So if you're an amateur, like you're like a college baseball player amateur, and I'm like the guy who struggles to play right field in Little League.
It's just because I think it's because of just who I learned it all from and what I got involved in it. And I jumped in feet first because I had people that I got to know really well that really kind of helped me understand all of it and start to pick up on it a little bit. And then, me jumping on the rabbit hole, buying as many bottles as I did was helped me just kind of learn. And then me saying, hey, I'm gonna start an Instagram page and then learning that way through other people. But like, then, yeah, if you say I'm a college person, there's people that are in the Hall of Fame right now then that know a hell of a lot more than I do. So
Yeah,
It
yeah.
it's unbelievable. I mean, I see some of these. It's funny. I came and met somebody yesterday. I did a trade. I had bought a bottle from my friend that I didn't want. That's going to be another podcast story for another day. But I bought a bottle I didn't want because I misunderstood a text. And I went to go meet the guy, a person that I know on Instagram, because I wanted to trade him bottles. So we traded bottles. And when I was doing that, he was telling me, he's like, man, your collection's amazing. It's awesome. And I look at my collection and go, I don't discount it. It's really good, but like a lot of it's heavy rum and some crazy rums as well. But it's like he was like, I'm so jealous of your collection. I'm looking at bottles in his collection and I'm like, dude, your collection's fantastic. I wish I had those bottles. So it's always FOMO, man. All of us in this whole entire bourbon universe or whatever, we all have FOMO of the bottle you don't have, the bottle you want, and all of those different things. So and that's how I think that's how I think distilleries and like companies keep roping you in, because they'll release the next thing that everybody wants. They want the label, they want the the juice inside because it's 12 years old or whatever, and then everybody has to go find it and then be the first person to have it and then post it on Instagram. And I'm past that phase in my like searching and hunting. Like I am very particular with what I want now, and only go buy what I know I really want or what I think I'll like, and that's it. I'm not on the FOMO side of things anymore, because you can spend a lot of money with FOMO, a ton of money with FOMO.
You know what it reminds me of? You telling that story about you seeing your buddy's selection and him seeing yours, and you guys each want one. It reminds me of, like, remember when you were a kid and you'd go over to somebody's house and they'd have like different toys or different board games than what you had, and you just thought that they had like a hookup and the greatest parents of all time, but then they would come over to your house and feel the same way, right? And so that's, I think that's what it is. I think just as humans, we always want what someone else has and not necessarily always satisfied with what we have.
Yep. Well, I think that's what's the cool thing about this stuff. And I'll have to, when I get some more, I'll have to send them to you. But we do sample bottles. So you can buy sample bottles off of Amazon, like 1 ounce or 2 ounce sample bottles. And then what happens is you can trade or ship sample bottles back and forth to everybody. So you can try things that you may not buy yourself. And therefore, you're not buying a whole entire 750 bottle. You're not pissing away all that money, and you get to try something, which I think is another thing that I like the most about this. And I think why I've gotten so far down into the rabbit hole of buying things is because I've had friends as I've gone along this journey, like they have had me try insane things that I will probably never try again, or am very, very thankful I've got to try at least one time, and I might try again. But I think that's what helps, because when I was taking pictures of my collection and sending them, I'm like, do you want any of these? And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. I'd love this one. And he's like, I know that's an expensive bottle. I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, that's the whole reason I bought these, is that to share them with people, because that's the same thing that people did for me, is share those things with me. And I got to try so many different things. That's the same thing I want to do for somebody else as well. So it's kind of cool that, like, we traded the full bottles yesterday, and then I brought him 6 samples of things that he had never tried before that he was really excited to try. And he sent me pictures of his collection. I was like, oh, I've seen that bottle only once. I've never had it. I'd like to try it. I've seen that one only once. And so I got 6 samples from him too. So it's kind of cool that way. And one of the samples I had last night, I was like, okay, this is bad, because I'm going to go buy a bottle of this because it was that good.
You liked it that much, huh?
Yeah. So, and that's what ends up happening, is then you try something and you're like, now I like it. I've tried it. I want to add it to my collection. How hard is it to find? And luckily it's pretty easy to find. So
nice. Yeah. You know what? I may have to look into those sample bottles, because I don't want to go spend money. I don't want to go spend $30, $40, $50, $60 on something that I don't know, whether or not I'm going to like it. And I may have, a big bottle that, either I got to, jump on the grenade, or, I've got to just let it sit there and give it away. So, I like the idea of the sample bottles.
Yeah, I'll have to, next time I got to order more. So next time I get some in, I'll have to send you some things I'll send you some that you can go buy anytime you want. Right. So I'm not sending you all things you can't find. And then I'll send you things that you can't find. And you're like, oh crap, Jason, I hate you. This thing is amazing. And other than that, you don't want to spend it.
Now I got to go trekking around Kentucky to try and find this stuff.
Yeah. So funny story. Yesterday, I went to go pick up my son at his friend's house. And a while ago, I had brought his friend's dad over a couple sample bottles. I brought him over a Calumet 16, which is a 16-year-old bourbon. I brought him over Short Barrel. So Short Barrel is a local distillery or a local company here. They source. So in the bourbon world, and I don't know if you know this, but certain consumers or certain distilleries or companies will source from other areas. So very much like the rum market. They'll purchase barrels, bring it to a location, and then they'll bottle it under their own label. So the back of the label will actually say distilled in Kentucky, but they're based out of Atlanta, for example. So Short Barrel is one of those companies that does that. And they released a 15-year Founders Reserve that was $200 a bottle. and it's fantastic. It's probably one of my favorite pours ever. And I had given him a bottle of that as well, or a sample bottle of that. So he wrote on the label and he handed the bottles back to me yesterday. The sample bottle's empty, and he's like, "Okay, the 16-year I didn't like. It was too hot, too spicy. He's like, it wasn't for my palate." He's like, "But this 15-year one," he says, "man, this was really good." He's like, "What? I haven't seen a bottle of that. Have you ever seen a bottle of it?" I'm like, funny thing is, I haven't seen one for a while, but today when I was out shopping on my way back home, I found one. He's like, "Oh man," he's like, "really good." He goes, "Can you buy it next time you see it?" I'm like, "It's $200. He's like, "What? I'd never spend $200 on a bottle." He's like, "You want to split it with me?" I'm like, "I'll buy one and split it with you." But yeah. So sometimes you get those pours that are just so good and you're like, man, but do you want to spend the money on it? Do you have them? First of all, do you have the money to spend, number one, but then number two, like is the value, is what you're getting for your palate. And therefore is that value is it worth it to you to buy that for that, for that price?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Do you want this bottle of whiskey, or do you want your kid to go to college?
Yeah, exactly. So
Better get straight A's in high school, kid.
Yeah, that's what I tell my kids too. I'm like, dude, scholarships and all that fun stuff. Get straight A's and do all that. So yeah, but just wait for high school. I have 2 freshmen now. It's a completely different experience, and they're finding out the hard way.
It's real now, kids.
Yep, real life is now happening. The fun is over. So, well, man, thanks for joining on the podcast. So Jim, we learned a little bit about Jim today. So Jim ventured down the wild turkey rabbit hole, but he settled himself back into the Four Roses brand. So Jim, you need to start reaching out to Four Roses and tell them that you are you're just a normal Four Roses drinker, and that they need to supply you with Four Roses for the rest of your life. And follow them tell them you have a podcast and tell them advertise. They can be an advertiser for your podcast. There you go. Parents drink.
I was going to tell them I'm on a podcast. I'm on a podcast about bourbon, and I just champion their brand, and so they need to supply me. I'm like the Michael Jordan of Four Roses podcast.
You're the brand ambassador. I wouldn't go as far as Michael Jordan, because then you'd be the GOAT, which means you'd probably drink all their different ones. But since you drink one, you'd be like the Wayne Corbett of Four Roses.
I played high school basketball, and nobody ever compared me to Michael Jordan. I thought this might be my only shot in my life to be compared to Michael Jordan. So that's why I threw it out there.
I'm not even comparing myself to Michael Jordan. That's impossible. But man, hey, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Hopefully this was fun. This is all different and new for me. So
thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you joined. And I appreciate it. So thanks everybody for listening. This was episode 7 of the Dram Amateur Podcast. My name is Jason. Very much appreciate you guys listening and for all the support. And look forward to talking with you guys soon. Take care. Have a great day. This has been the Dram Amateur Podcast.